everyone? Welcome to the Artists Alley Aftermath edition of the Faith and Fandom podcast. This is specifically for Wake Forest Comicon 2025. And yeah, I'm going to start off by saying this was my least prepared for Comic-Con. And not simply because I was slacking, but to be transparent, I spent the 4 days prior to this Comic-Con in the hospital. If you've been listening to our podcast or anything for a while, the last little bit I've mentioned, pray. I've got some health issues that I was trying to work through and check out and everything. And I was trying to be patient and hope things maybe wore off or changed or whatever. But Tuesday before this show, I was just getting freaked out in the middle of a board meeting about how intense some things were. And I was having some, I don't know if the right word is peripheral neuropathy or like light paralysis or whatever else, but effectively I couldn't feel temperature sensation on the lower half of the right side of my body. So like from my tummy to my toes on my right side, I couldn't feel temperature, which is super weird. And it's been that way for about 6 weeks. Like from GalaxyCon to everything else, I was kind of dealing with that, which was kind of distracting. And occasionally through that process, my left arm was also throbbing or swelling or tense or numb. And I was wondering if it was a side effect of a medication. I was, trying to figure out what it was. And I did all the amateur detectiving looking stuff up on the internet, which was absolutely useless because I had convinced myself, I just needed some supplements and some prayer and, it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool. But it freaked me out enough Tuesday night that I went to the emergency room and, I spent from Tuesday night until Friday evening in the hospital, which not looking forward to that bill. I had 3 MRIs, a CT scan, a chest x-ray, 24 blood vials drawn, the whole deal. And so effectively as of Friday, I was told that I have a cervical spine issue, that I have alternating bulging discs in my neck, and some of my tissue and soft tissue and things like that are getting squished or pressed, and basically my neck is in bad shape. And I'm gonna need to see a neurosurgeon. So that's literally all the information I've got right now. I've got a bunch of x-rays and MRIs and stuff to look at, and probably a mortgage level bill coming. But I spent almost the entire week in a hospital room. And so I was literally chomping at the bit to get out of there. So I called my kids and said, hey, load up the Faith and Fandom tubs. I'm going to get out of the hospital. I'm going to drive to Durham and I'm going to see your sister and have dinner with her. Then I'm going to crash at a hotel and rest before the Comic-Con. And which is exactly what I did. And I'm going to go ahead and say this so you can all yell at me in the future. I'm not supposed to be lifting anything over 20 pounds right now. And y'all have heard me say this before, my book tubs are hundreds of pounds and stuff. And so I'm trying to figure out how to handle all of that in the future carefully and everything else. But yeah, part of the reason I was unprepared for this con was because I had my kids load my car, and there was piles of stuff that I needed to actually get in the car that I didn't think twice about. I threw a backpack together of clothes and zipped right out the door. So all but one copy of book 10 was sitting in a box in my living room. I had one copy in my box. My Delicious in Dungeon stickers, as well as my Superman stickers, and a handful of other things were sitting on the piano in my kitchen or dining room or whatever. And I didn't realize any of this until I unloaded at the show on Saturday. So drove up to Durham, had a really good meal with my daughter at a place called Tataco. And we talked and we laughed and we ate and we drank and we did all the things, and it was good. I accidentally booked the same hotel in Wake Forest that I booked last year with no memory. I was just like, oh, looks cool. I'll go here. And pulled up and I was like, oh, I was here last year, which was nice. And the hotel was fine, but the situation was hot garbage because I was at the end of a hallway, and apparently a family or a group of families had booked hotel rooms across from each other. And in the room across from me at like 11:30 at night, people were doing karaoke, like hardcore karaoke. And apparently in the room next to me, like even we had one of those doors that you share. They had thrown all the children, which based on my numbers of sound, there were 4 like kids under the age of 7. And some as young as like a year to 2 years old in this hotel room alone. And they were buck wild and loud and jumping off of things and running into walls and crying. And I'm just trying to go to sleep because I'm overwhelmed by existence at this point. So, anyways, I finally went to sleep, got up in the morning, grabbed a terrible hotel coffee and a yogurt, and went on my day. I've done Wake Forest as much as I could for the last few years. It's a show I enjoy. It's a good vibe. Normally, it's right there by the seminary, which kind of changes kind of some of the clientele of a Comic-Con. But they moved it to a park gym, like down the way. It was several miles out of town, honestly. And it was bananas in terms of for the artists and vendors, because this was happening at a Parks and Rec gym. So it was a city thing and a government thing. Every artist, vendor, and volunteer at the show had to fill out an extensive application and background check, like putting your social security number in. And do you know how few people in a Comic-Con carny world want to be giving random venues their social security number? Not a good look. Either way. I get there, drive through the sea of pickleball courts and things like that to get to the overall building. And it's nice. There's a path where you don't have to take the stairs and you can just wheel your carts down. There's a lake with like a dam right there, and it was really nice scenery, and people were walking their dogs. It was really pretty. And another benefit to this being at a city venue is that there was free admission, which free admission, generally speaking, is good for artists because that's more money they can spend in the show rather than getting into the show. So I show up and I start the long process of unloading my car, and this is the first time I've ever had to really be like, okay, you need to pay attention to what you're doing to your body with this, so that you're not doing more damage. And because it really is at the point that if I do something recklessly at this point, I could end up with way more damage. So it took my time. I made 2 trips instead of one. I rolled the cart and the shelves and everything in on one go, and then I brought the tubs in on the next go, and literally just lifted them to get them onto the cart, and like slid them at the back, and took my time setting up. I also misgauged what size of table I own because this show is free and everything. Everybody had to bring their own tables, or it's free to get in. So there's less investment on the runner's part, which is not a negative. We knew in advance. And the table that I had, I thought was an 8-foot table, and it was a 6-foot table. So I brought my shelf that is strictly reserved for 8 foot and more, which meant I had no room to like sit out the list of books and stuff like that, or the list of what's in the books. And I had to like pull that out of my back pocket, like a menu at a restaurant. And, but it took me until literally I got there before 8 o'clock. I was one of the first people in the door, and it took me the full 2 hours to set up. Like, people were coming in the door as I was finishing up. But I got there, I got started, and it was a good experience. And like, one of the first people that came by the booth was a gentleman that had been who had seen it this show before, and he bought my only copy of book 10 first thing right out the gate, which was cool. And then a little bit later, there was a group that came through who had been familiar that Colin Wallace, who wrote the guest chapter on Demon Slayer in the book 10, and they're like, oh, this is the thing that Colin did. But yeah, there's a lot. So there was a crochet young lady next door, and her mom and her children were there setting up with her, and had good conversations with her. And I saw that she had neat D&D crochet stuff. Like, she had a little mimic chest that I thought was adorable, and I told her dibs the minute I saw the little mimics come out. And we had good conversations. And then a little bit later, as we were just talking back and forth about show experiences and everything, she said that when I was younger, I used to cosplay, and I always saw you in your booth at the shows. And now, since then, she's gotten married, gotten kids, and has a whole adult life, and she's crafting and making booths. But she says that literally when she started going to cosplays and shows, that my booth was there, and so she'd always kind of like seen me in the background of everything. So it was just weird to know that like I'd been a bridged portion of nerd culture for a family like that. And then literally the same lady and her children, who were delightful people, she had a really cool display right behind her. And then right behind her was one of these old time comic book vendor dudes with their handmade shelf of like wood and racking. And her kids knocked her wall over into the wall of graded comic books. And the graded comic books just fell like napalm and confetti to the ground. And based on what I heard, like there could have been like $1,000 comics that were broken open and damaged and stuff. And so they were really contrite, and the showrunner came over and said, hey, you got to be careful. And like, I don't think anything more happened out of that. But yeah, that was kind of crazy. And the show also like had a green room where the artists and vendors could get pizza and drinks. But out the gate, I was having really good conversations. I had an old friend that came by, and I drew like a giant 8.5 by 11 Barbara Manatee.
And then there's a little kid who came by in a Sonic costume, and he was super cool. And he looked through my little book of sketches, and he's like, "You don't have Sonic." And I'm like, "Hang out for 20 minutes. I'll draw you a Sonic." And so I drew him a Sonic. Um, and then honestly though, like I was constantly drawing the whole show. A young lady came by and she bought some art. And then she said, "Hey, here's three of my original characters. Can you draw some of them?" So I spent, a hot minute drawing her original characters and having good conversations. And while I was drawing, a little old Spanish grandma came by and she was like talking about how much she loved the booth and how cool it was and how encouraging she was. And I just walked away feeling like, yeah, a little Spanish grandma likes me. That's the bee's knees. As someone who loved and lost his little Spanish grandma, I was pretty pumped about that. Um, but literally, there are just so many people there that were crazy encouraging, from stickers to shirts to books. A lady who has her own book series came and bought "Can I Wear My Cape?" And some theology students were buying the T-shirts and wanting to start conversations. A dude came by and it's like, "I just need to buy stuff from you because I want to encourage you and do all these things." And then it was just neat. A friend of mine named Les came by with his whole family, and I literally don't think I've seen them since 2009, if even that late. It could have been earlier than that. And we were in a couple different bands back when we thought we were young and cool. Um, and so it was neat to get to see them and talk to them. And I gave his kids a bunch of Pokemon cards, and I gave out a lot of Pokemon cards at this show, by the way. The whole dice thing with the Pokemon cards was a big hit. Um, and so again, thank you to Ben, thank you to Dragon's Lair Comics for giving me all these bulk Pokemon cards to give away. And it was a blessing. And that was one of the things I just kind of felt throughout the whole day was, this is a blessing. This is a blessing. I feel encouraged. And honestly, after the week I had had, it was a big deal. I just feel like God was just kind of pouring out some love on me. Not that he's ever not pouring out love on me, but it was definitely desired and needed at that point. A friend of mine came by early on in the show and brought me a nice coffee, and I appreciated that. And we chatted and things like that. It was pretty cool too. Um, but yeah, it was just really good overall. Lots of encouragement. I had a mom come by and talk about ministry and how her daughter wants to get into art and not being scared of setting up booths. And so we talked for like a good 30 or 40 minutes with that. And I just thought it was pretty neat. And and this was a show that ran 10 to 4, which honestly 10 to 4 shows really do breeze by. And this was the point where like there wasn't free time. There was my friend Jason who does voiceover work. Um, and he was walking around trying to find a free moment when nobody was at my booth to come talk to me. And there was just like never a moment where somebody wasn't there. Um, and then, one young lady who was there came by and bought a John Cena joke sketch that I had done forever ago. And it was like literally just John Cena's clothes on an invisible body. And I've had that sketch for like 6 months, maybe a year. I don't know. And she bought that, and she also bought my Jey Uso. And then she came back and commissioned me to draw a CM Punk, which I've never tried to draw before. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try not to suck at this. Um, but I got to have this conversation with a young lady about ministry and future and art and different ways she can connect and do things. I got to talk to a lot of people. It was just like, this was one of the biggest good day blessing shows I've had in a long time. Um, and in that process, and I'm not going to brag too much on this or make it too much of a left hand, right hand situation. Um, I found out that if you don't know what that means, in the Bible, it says that whenever you give, do it in secret. Don't brag about it to other people. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Um, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with this, but uh, I found out that the crochet lady next to me, um,
outside of knowing me from when she was younger and everything else, that her and her husband are in the process of working on becoming missionaries to Japan. And, they weren't sales pitching it, they weren't pushing it or anything like that, but just through conversation, found that out. And I know this is going to sound super duper churchy to say this. Rock with me because you know where my heart is. I really felt like God laid on my heart, give them this much. And because, it's not like they're taking collections and stuff like that. It was just like, all right, buy their merch. And, it's all crafty stuff. And I just felt like God laid a number on my heart. And I was like, all right, I'm going to buy this much of your stuff. And when the show ended, I said, hang on, I need to buy a modest amount of your stuff. And I just kind of went in and did exactly what I felt like God led me to do. And just say this for y'all that are Patreon supporters and stuff like that, you help me bless another family that's doing ministry in ways I'm not doing it, and to help prepare them for where God's leading them. So I feel like I was able to be a good blessing in ways that, I don't normally have the opportunities. And that truly came just from y'all's encouragement and the ability to do that. Also, when my friend from high school who I was in the band with and everything, we took some pictures together and everything. You can see them on the Facebook and Instagram and stuff. But his kid went home and started drawing her own sketch cards because she saw that I was drawing mine. And I've said this forever. Sometimes all it takes is for people to see that other people can do things, for it to be encouraged to think that they can do it too. It's like, if you can see somebody else doing stuff that they may not be great at and getting better, it encourages them to do that. When one of my friends was sitting at the booth, a dude who I've seen at this show for years came by and says, "Oh, your artwork's improving." And my friend leaned over and said, "Are they insulting you?" I'm like, "Oh no. I think I actually started drawing for the first time at this show like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 3 years now, and it sucked. It sucked pretty bad." I think Wake Forest Comicon maybe 3 years ago, or it couldn't have been last year because I was at Smoky Mountain Fan Fest and missed this show. But the year before, no, 2 years, I don't know, man. It all fades together. But I started drawing and selling commissions of art at this show. So this show has seen me at my best and worst. But yeah. And it was good. It was a good experience. I felt really blessed and encouraged by the day. The people I got to talk to, there was one free Ren cosplayer, so that was cool. Appreciated that. Checking my photos real quick to see if there's anything I'm missing in terms of notes and stuff. But it was a good day. It just really was. I was blessed. I was busy. I felt encouraged and was really just grateful to be able to do what I was doing. And I was not prepared. I was missing a lot of things. There were shirts that I couldn't sell people because we didn't have them, and that's a whole nother problem. But it was a blessing. And if I don't think I put any posts with it in there or anything, but I look abused. Like, my arm is covered in terrible bruises and stuff from the million vials of blood they drew and all that stuff. And so, like, the dude who runs the show is like, "What happened? You doing okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've got some medical issues and stuff like that." But yeah. And they offered to help me out to load and stuff. And I was really appreciative. Again, gonna have to make sure I'm not trying to overdo things in the near future with all that. But honestly, y'all, it was just a really good show. It was encouraging. I got to be an encouragement. I got to bless people. And because I bought stuff to bless the one family, I'm going to be able to bless other people with the stuff that I bought. So it's going to be a big old blessing cycle. But no, it was just really, it was a good day. Had a good time with it. Yeah, it was just really encouraged. Really, I feel like strengthened is a good term to say with that. I was really strengthened in the process. And I took my time to load out again, not rushing, not trying to hurt myself. And in that process, I was like one of the last vendors out. So I was first one in, one of the last ones out. And it was nice to be able to close up and look at the nice scenery and walk over to the water before I left. And I ordered a John Cena towel. If you've seen wrestling for the last year or so, John Cena on his year of farewell has been like, when he comes out, he'll have a little towel that says the last time is now, because he announced a year in advance, hey, I'm ending 2025. And so I'm keeping this thing on me these days. And I took a photo with it because honestly, I don't know all the opportunities that I'm going to get with this. And I need to treat every moment that I'm getting like it's the last chance I'm getting to be in this moment. Like when John Cena was at SummerSlam, he's like, this is my last SummerSlam. This is my last WrestleMania. I don't know, this is my last Wake Forest Comicon, but it helps me to have a good reminder. It's like, dude, you don't know. Like, my whole world changed in a week. And I don't know all the opportunities I'm going to get. So I'm going to just kind of remind myself to be appreciative and to be intentional and to kind of be focused on that. So just want to say thanks. And it was a really great show. Zero regrets going there. Good times. My next show will be at the Brothers Boyd Comicon in Havelock, North Carolina on September, I'm going to say 6th, whatever that weekend is. And then after that, I will be in Greensboro, North Carolina at the Greensboro Comicon. And then after that, I will be at Boardwalk Comicon in Myrtle Beach. Then after that, I will be at Empire Comicon in wherever close to Savannah is. I always forget the name of the city that's there. Ridgeland, maybe. And then I think the last thing I've got on my schedule is doing Geek Church at Fayetteville Comic-Con or Fayetteville Fan Fest. So yell at me if you see me lifting too many heavy things. I am going to work on that and try and do my best. I even bought a new backpack on wheels because my backpack weighs a solid 40 to 50 pounds most days. So I have a backpack with wheels that I'm going to look like I'm going to an airport every day. But, you know, whatever. I'm trying not to do more damage than good. Before I go, I want to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters for being all the encouragements that you are. Jackie Kraft, Kelly Townsend, Alan Wallace, Fab Quack, Rivka and Tristan Birch, Dorothy Martin, Winston, Michelle Stewart, Lynn Turner, David Brooks, Jeff Weimer, Colin Sproles, Jamie Montgomery, the Coleman family, Jonathan Herman, Ron Petit, Gear Saber Cosplay, Scott Ward, Alicia Glenn, Jay Sheed, Jason Crutchfield, Mike Perna, Todd Turner, John Jacobs, Zach Harris, Caleb Grimm, Jeanette Skaggs, Jason Bullock, Christina Ray, Sarah Lewis, Patrick Gale, Rebecca Godlove, and Adam Davis. Thank you all for being the encouragements and the just kind of life-giving force that you are for this. I don't take anything you do lightly, and I am greatly encouraged by how you move and the ways that you do what you do. So thank you for loving, thank you for encouraging, thank you for strengthening, and I'm going to try and be more prepared next time, and I hope to see you all at a con real soon. Have a great day.